Hello, welcome back to this series of videos about how to build a guitar. Now, this is video 2, but we're still not going to be actually building the guitar. We're going to be starting to put together a mould. Essentially a heavyweight sort of mould that we can put the things in, and we can build the guitar into it, and it'll hold its shape and that kind of thing. So I'm going to start off with some 18mm plywood. Now you need 4 pieces of it to build the mould, and I've found that if you take a full-size sheet, which is about 2.4 meters by about 1.2, if you cut it in half and then in half again, one of those pieces is enough to build a guitar mould with. Now, cheapest thing is to buy one whole sheet and cut it up, and then you'll have some spare. You can buy just the quarter pieces. You go to somewhere like Wickes, you can get just one piece. If you take that one piece that you've got left, you can cut it into 4 pieces, and that's enough to build it with. So what I've done here, and I'll bring this down. This is 4 pieces of it. So I just cut it with a jigsaw, stuck it into my workmate, and then I've just used a power plane to smooth off the top. So these are now 4 pieces, and they're all the same. Okay, so just 18mm ply, 4 pieces, the same. And you should find that when you line up your mould, your template, that it should fit like that, nicely within the bounds. Okay, perfect. So now we've got the 4 pieces of wood. Take the template we made last time, and we sort of line it up along the one edge here. Make sure we've got an equal gap, top and bottom, that it's touching. And if you've done this properly, this should be a straight line. And then just take a pencil, draw carefully around the template, and do it twice so there's a nice dark line. And there we are. Just about make that out. So that's the line that we're going to cut to. We're going to throw away this bit, or use it again, this bit in the middle, and what's left here is going to be the template. Now, I need to make 2 halves. So what I'm going to do is line these 2 up. I'm going to screw these 2 together. I'm going to cut 2 at a time, and then I'm going to do the same with these 2, and that way I get a matched pair. So then when I turn it into a mould, by putting some wood in between it, what's going to happen is they're going to line up. So there's one pair, and I'll do the same to the other pair. Now then what we're going to do is cut these out. Now you can use a bandsaw if you've got one, but you can also use a jigsaw. With a jigsaw you just want to go, make sure you don't go too far, too close to the line, because jigsaws aren't quite as accurate as bandsaws. Follow the line round, and then we're going to use a sander, some sanding drums to bring it down to the line. So now I found some screws that go most of the way through, but not all the way. And then you measure the distance, and you can drill as many holes as you want in the top. In this case, I think I'm going to use 3 screws. So find a drill that's the right size, and then I think I'm going to put one up here, one in the middle, and one at the bottom. So you can see that the screws will just go through there, poke out the other side for holding the 2 things together. And then all we need to do is put the 2 together, carefully line them up. You can do this with a set square, or you can just feel it with your hands if you're lazy like me. And then do up the 3 screws. In fact, I might put another one in there, and that'll be the 2 held together. So I'm over at the bandsaw, and again, I said you can use a jigsaw if you haven't got one. I'm going to cut these out now, but don't forget extraction attached to the bandsaw. I'm also going to put a mask on, because I don't want to be breathing in all this dust. Generally, sawdust can be carcinogenic, so don't be breathing in unless you have to. In fact, not even if you have to, there's no excuse for breathing in the dust. It's not going to do you any good. So let's get started. Right, now, so I've cut the first one out, and there we are. But as you can see, it's not quite down to the line. Get it into the camera, get it in focus. So what I'm going to do is use the trusty sanding drum things again. Now again, the ideal tool for this is a bobbin sander, which I don't own. So these in a drill should do the trick. Worst case, you can put them in a normal drill, clamp it into a vise somehow and use that to do this job. But nicely in here will give us a good alternative. And obviously we're going to start off with my classic jig, a piece of wood with a hole cut in it, but that lines up here, and what we do is you clamp that onto there, bring this up, and you've got a nice disc, and you can run this along it perfectly. So let's do that. So we're all set up now. You can see I've got my dust extraction here around the back, but I shall wear a mask as well because we're going to make a lot of dust. And then you can see the clamps on there, and all I need to do is to run this around here and we'll be job done. Okay, so now that's the first one done. So cut round, sanded it, and you can see right up to the line now on this, so this should be a perfect match for the template. So there we are. Next thing to do is to make the other one. Now to make the other one, we want to first of all make sure it lines up with this one as well. So put it on a flat table. In this case, let me turn you around a little bit. What I've got, this is an old piece of kitchen worktop with a piece of wood screwed on the back, and that means I can clamp it into my work table, and you've got a nice flat smooth table to work on. So let's put that on there. Find what I did with this. Like that. Take the other two, and then I can see exactly where these two line up. Let me zoom you in a little bit on that. There we go. So we line these up here, there and there, so they match up. So that's like that. And then I can put the template back on this side, draw around it again. So here we are, template is on. These are lined up, and I can draw around the template. So straight away, again, nice and easy to do. And again, I'm going to put two lines on so I can make sure it's nice and dark and see where I'm cutting. And there we are, there's the second one. Now don't worry if you're thinking about putting on a cutout, because we can do that later on. Cut it out as a standard guitar shape, and then you can add an extra piece for the cutout later on. And the beauty of that is that you've still got a mould that you can do a normal guitar or a guitar with a cutout just by adding a piece on. You can screw a piece on, so you can use these moulds many times. It just depends on how many times you want to make the same shape guitar. So let's cut that one out. Right, so we've got our two mould sides here, each consisting of two bits. And you can see the other thing I've done is just chopped off these sides as well, so that it's a little bit lighter. You don't have these great big hafting things sticking out. So now we're ready to start thinking about putting the moulds together. And what you're going to need is a set of blocks cut from the scrap. And what these are going to do is fit on here, one at either end. You see how they stick out. And then what you're going to do is separate the two, and then one of these will go on top of there when you separate them, and there you'll have your mould. So the other thing you'll need is a stack of blocks, all cut to the same size. In this case, it's 75 millimeters. And what happens is, you can see that these will stack. I've only done a few. These will stack all the way around. We'll glue these together, and they'll form the main parts. You can see what's going to happen. And then what we'll do is get a rasp and clean those up on the inside to get a nice smooth finish. And you can see how it fits together. And then these end blocks, because they stick out, we can put a screw through. So the first thing to do is to make a shed load of these blocks. Doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be planed wood or anything, so nice and cheap, rough sawn wood. Take a length like this, and the easiest way is to stick it on the bandsaw. Stick a fence on the bandsaw at 75 mil, and you just go chop, 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 chop. There they all are. If you haven't got a bandsaw, you're going to have to use the old way. You're going to have to use a set square and a pencil and a saw and chop across all these things individually. And then you're going to have to take some sort of sanding block to make sure they're all the same length. So if you do them on a bandsaw, it's all done in about 10 minutes. But there we are. My first one was done on a hand saw. It takes a while. You get there in the end. So that's the thing we're going to do next. And here we are. Here's a fence. I've measured it and made sure that it's all square. Fixed it in place. Extraction goes in there. One long piece of wood. And then all we do, put it against the fence and start chopping till we've done the whole thing. You're probably going to need like 60 of these chunks, so it's a fair bit to do. Right, let's go. And there we are. There's one set done. Now, if you are just buying a bandsaw for the first time, be really careful. It will take your fingers if you let it, so just be careful. Now then, we're ready to start sticking these things together. So first of all, let's take out the screws. Okay, so we won't need those again, but those to one side. We should have two identical pieces. And this is the type of glue that's best to use. Yellow glue, it's aliphatic resin glue. That's really good because it's water-based. You put it on and off, you can get it wet and it'll come apart again. But you can sand it, it dries hard. If you use standard wood glue, it dries soft. You try and sand it, you just make a mess. So this stuff is much, much better. It's quite strong as well. So this is the stuff to use. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to take two of my blocks, put them in place here. And notice I've marked which side is which, so that we don't get them mixed up, not like last time. So that goes in there. The other one goes in there. And then we'll take a third block, stick it in the middle somewhere. And you should be able to balance this on top. Okay, I'm going to need another one. There we go. Get some idea of what it's going to look like. And what I'm going to do first is to glue these three blocks down first of all and let them set so that it's all sort of in place. And then I'm going to glue all the other ones in between. So let's start off with the first ones. So a little bit of glue on the end. Make sure it's the right way around. Okay, and what I'm going to do is make sure that it's all square. So first of all this way around, which is good, and then this way, which is also good. Okay, so I know that's good. Same at the other end. Little bit of glue, not too much, it makes a mess. And then check that I've got the square end, which that is. And again, press it down double check that it's all square, and it should also be flat against the block here. Oops, flat against the block here. Now you can pin these if you want to, or put a screw through to hold it while it dries. I don't tend to bother. But and then let's put middle one in. Now it's important with these middle ones that they just slightly overlap, because what's going to happen is you're going to sand them down with a rasp later on, so they need to be slightly proud, otherwise you'll get a steppy sort of look to it. And then last one, some glue on that one, and again just over. And then what you can do is pop the top on, make sure it's all square and it all fits together. Like that. And then I'm going to stick a bit of weight on it. So some things that are a little bit heavy. There we are. Maybe a battery for good measure. Stick it on there. Okay. That all looks good. I've only glued it on the bottom. I've not glued it on the top, notice. I don't want it to stick onto the top yet. Otherwise it's going to be really hard to get these bits in. So just glue the bottom and then leave it, and I'm going to give one last check. Everything is in place and it's all square. Which is okay, and now I'm going to leave that for a little while. Now there's been a few hours, glue's dry, so these are nice and firm. So next thing, double check with a set square. Make sure everything's still as it should be. Okay, which it is. And then we can fill in using these blocks, and you're going to need somewhere in the region of 30 of these blocks. I usually start off around the waist where it moves most. So again, making sure that they overlap, because we're gonna be filing these off. Okay, that's how it's going to go. So taking your aliphatic glue again, we can start to add the blocks. Now I'm not adding any glue on the sides, just on the bottom, because this tight bit here is the only bit where the blocks will actually be together anyway. And the reason I'm putting them sort of parallel to each other like this is because there's not enough room to curve them round at this point. So maybe the first couple either side, and then we can start to make them curve round. Right then. So I'm starting to get a bit more of an angle on the blocks now. And it doesn't matter if there's a gap. Small gaps, they're fine. You don't want huge, great big gaps, if it's like 2 inches, but small gaps, they're fine. As we come to this bit, really what's going to happen is the blocks are going to follow the curve round. And once you've done a section, just go around and arrange them, make sure that they all fit properly. I'm going to need one less, they just don't quite fit. Okay, so those are all in. Next thing is to go around with the set square and check they're okay. Okay, job done. Now we leave that to set for a few hours again. Now it's been a couple of hours and glue's dried on these things. They're all nicely in place. So what I've done is clamp this now down onto the table. I want to check to make sure it's flat, and chances are it's not. However carefully you put in, chances are some of these have got a slight angle, some of them aren't quite the right length. So I put the top on, which is the other half. Make sure it's the right half, make sure it's the half that you cut with it. And then I can check. And yeah, there are a couple of high points. So to get rid of the high points, sanding block with some nice rough sandpaper, find the high point, and you can start to sand it down flat. Or you can get one of these, an orbital sander. These are really good, they'll go through things very, very quickly. So let's see if we can't use this instead. Let's get that out of the way. There we go. Obviously I've got the extraction hoover on the back. And I can keep checking until we get it flat. Okay, so now these are all nice and flat. I can check that. Just try with a straight edge. That's all looking good now. That's all we need to do. Stick the top on. So what we'll do, check it first. We'll line it up with the blocks. That's the important bit. Line it with these blocks here. Put some glue on, and then we're going to put some clamps on it. So. Slight change of plan. So the clamps aren't big enough that I've got. So I'm going to do the next best thing, which is to put a load of weight on top of it. There we go. So with a final check through, make sure everything is lined up as it should be. And then we can leave that to dry. Okay, now for the most laborious part. It's taking this and making it smooth again. So these ones that's sticking out at the top here, because they're an outside curve, I can take a little plane and I can just plane those down quite easily. The others, so these inside curves, I'm going to have to do with a rasp instead. So this kind of thing. So it's like a file, but really, really rough. And they're not much. You can buy them for next to nothing from eBay, but they're really rough, and they'll take a big old. See, they'll take a big old chunk off when they go. Don't be using one of these metal files, because you'll be here for about 3 years. So then, let's have a go at this. So I've been going for about maybe 10 minutes, and you can see that I've managed to get that curve now starting to come in. Now you can use something like a power plane for this if you like, but don't forget the power planes are not subtle, and you're liable to go straight through. Take your time, do it slowly, and you'll get a nice result. So that's the outside part done. Now I've got to look at this inside part. So this is where we're going to start using a rasp, and preferably a rasp where we've got a curved surface as well. So we'll get one of those. And here we are. So this one, if I can show you, has got a curved surface to it. So what we can do is put it in and just go across. Now we're going to be careful, especially when we get quite close to the edge here. I don't want to be taking big chunks out of the plywood. When you get to the plywood stop, you should end up with just a slight bump on it, but mostly it'll follow the thing around. And just, again, take your time with this. It takes a while just to do, but you know, 20 minutes or so, maybe half an hour should have the whole thing done. It's not that laborious. Now then, for this second one, I'm going to try something I haven't done before. So the first one I did with the rasps, as I showed you earlier on. But this time, I'm going to try using a router. Now, this is a great big, enormous one for kitchen worktops and that kind of thing. But the cutter I've got is a flush cutter. So you can see it's got a bearing on it at the top here, and the rest of it is flush with the bearing. So the idea is, if I put this down, I can run the bearing along the inside of the ply, and it should cut all of these slats as I go along. And it doesn't quite reach all the way, so I'll have to do it through once, flip it over and try again. But these things don't take any prisoners, so what you need to be very, very careful. This is clamped down onto the bench, so it's not going to move. I'm also going to use eye protection, absolutely necessary, ear protection because this is quite loud, and also the old mask. Very difficult to get any sort of extraction on this, so I'll use all those three. So let's get suited up and let's get it done. So here we are, this bit's now done. So I did it from both sides, and you can see what's happened is that I've not got the top and the bottom completely lined up when I glued these together, and you can see there's a bit of a ridge where the two meet. Now it's not too bad, to be honest. I think I can take a rasp and just take the rest of that out. All in all, it's been a lot quicker than just using the rasp on it, so we'll see. The other thing is I've got a bit of a dent in it. Where's that gone? I've got a bit of a dent in it here because what happened is the router slipped up slightly and the bearing popped over this, and I took a chunk out, so I'm going to have to fill that as well. Bit of car body filler in there should do the job. Sets quickly, and it makes a reasonably nice job. But overall, it has speeded things up. You pay your money and you take your choice. Now then, the final thing to do is to join the two halves together. So that's what these little blocks are for at the end that we put in. What I've done, you can see I've clamped them together. A couple of G-clamps. I've taken a lot of time lining these up, make sure everything's lined up, make sure these line up, clamp them together, and then all I need to do is pop a couple of holes through each one of these. So first of all, pilot holes. I've chosen the screws so they fit just about fit through the length of there. So all I need to do is to make the holes. And one there. Same again at the other end. One top, one bottom. There we go. So I've got the clamps in the middle so that I can get to the top and the bottom. And that's it. So I can release these now. There we go, clamps are off. And then I just need to drill out on this side these holes slightly bigger so that the screw will go through, and then that's that done. So just on the one side here, so I'm just going to pop holes through, just the pilot holes that I've drilled, I'm just going to widen them out on the one side, only on the one side. So these two and these two. And I should find that the screws slide nicely through those and they'll locate on the other side. So let's see if we can join them together. So here we are, put one screw through there, and then we just do it up. One up the other side, one at the other end, sorry. Not too tight, we don't want to strip the thread out of the wood. Try not to drop the screws. And there we are, job done. One guitar mould, all ready to go. Fairly solid. Check that everything lines up and we can get a bit of a rasp on there if it's not quite level. This one's okay. And there we are, job done. One mould. So finally we're ready to start thinking about building a guitar. If you like this video, please subscribe. Again, I'm aiming to try and do one of these once a week. It might end up being once every couple of weeks. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.